Let's give a couple more seconds for everyone to join. Right, I think we're live. Welcome everyone to another Subject Community Stand-Up. We do this once a month, every month. So we have been doing this for a while now. So let me, please, everyone who is in the meeting and is not presenting, feel free to mute yourself. As I was saying, we have been doing this for a couple of years now, and always once a month we meet with the whole staff community and we discuss the projects, everything that is everything new, everything that we have been working on, so on. Today we're going to be talking about logging. I'm really excited that Dave will present us the LLAMA logger. I think that is a really great tool. I remember we used to use Logify in the past, and then it got discontinued. So I think that in our field there was a need for the LLAMA logger. They will expand on this. As always, thanks everyone for joining. Join our Facebook group. We are almost like 3,700 members there. Join our LinkedIn, follow us on Twitter, and please share your experience. Let us know what you're working on. Let us know what you think about all the new features that DevExpress and SafeLaser are releasing. As always, I'm gonna let Hoche introduce herself, and then we can jump straight to the presentation with Dave.
Okay, so hi, my name is Jocho Ojeda. I guess like people in the community already knows me, and I work for Sari. I'm in charge of the technical experiments and doing like strange stuff in code. So if you ever have any doubt about how to connect XPO to something, just send us an email. Okay, so Dave, your turn.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, Dave from Llama Chant Technology. So today we're going to talk about LLAMA Logger. This is a tool that we've been using for a number of years ourselves internally. After Logify got shut down, we built this. And a bunch of our clients have been also using this. So in the last year, we've decided to open it up, let other developers sign up, and leverage the same tools that we do. Okay, so can everybody see my screen okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm going to do a bit of a quick presentation, then we'll actually dig into the UI and doing some code. So our agenda is going to be using 3 lines of code to start logging. It's 3 lines of code or less, depending on what you're logging into. We're going to talk about integrations. So we have an integration for XAF from DevExpress. We have a SeerLog integration, and we have a Microsoft Extensions iLogger integration as well. It's important to note that if we don't offer an integration that you think would be useful, please email us. We'd love to get on top of that as well. The easier it is for others to use our systems, the better. We'll talk about signing up and getting your API keys. We're going to go through the LLAMA Logger UI, look at notifications really quickly. We'll look at adding context to your log exceptions. We'll dig into that deeper, but essentially, why did something occur? Who did it occur for? Where did it occur? We'll take a quick peek behind the scenes at a high level, and then we'll talk about some cross-organization setup, which is a really handy feature for kind of offloading your costs to your clients. Okay. So let's start with 3 lines of code. It takes 3 lines of code to start logging in any .NET application. Grab our NuGet package for llamalogger.core. Create yourself a LLAMA Logger client. You're going to pass in your API key and whatever version number you decide to give it. And then you can just start calling client.logAir. And what's happening in the background is that these errors are being put into a queue, and there's some processing that happens in the background to push it up to the LLAMA Logger servers, where you can log in and see those exceptions, kind of drill into them. If we're looking at integrations, it's even less code in most cases. So on the XAF side, you're going to install the LlamaChant framework.llamalogger package up in your program.cs or VB, whatever it is. you're going to call your llama logger tracing.setup, again, passing in your API key and your version. And then you're going to call the llama logger tracing.initialize. So this overrides the existing XAF logging, kind of piggybacks on top of it. It is important to note that if you still want to continue to log to a text file at the same time, we recommend that you add the path in which you want to log to as part of this initialize method. On the Serolog side, so if you're already using Serolog and want to try llama logger, add the serolog.syncs.llamalogger NuGet package. And really what we just do is add the llama logger configuration, do the write to, and do the add .llama logger, again, passing API key in your version. And finally, the Microsoft Logger. This one's really easy. Grab the llama logger.microsoft.extensions.logging package. And really, if you just search for llama logger in NuGet, you're going to see all these packages available. And basically, all you're doing is adding to the services collection. So in most cases, it's builder.services.add llama logger, again, API key and version. Okay, talking about sign up. It is free to sign up. It is free to get in and play. You get to use one project. We keep your data visible to you for basically 7 days. You can transfer 20 megabytes of data a month. It's not a lot, but it's enough to get in there and kind of see how it works. Try it out, see those exceptions, and see if it adds value to you. And then if you like it and want to increase your subscription, turn on additional features, you can certainly do that anytime. The API keys, once you're in Llama Logger, you're going to create projects. Each of those projects, you can see I have 2 here. They have an API key available. It's quite long. If at any point that API key gets released into the wild and you don't want to do that, you can also reset your API key per project. And then anything that's invalid will stop logging. So on the Llama Logger UI side, now that we've talked about the coding a little bit, we're going to talk about some key features. So the full text search is one of the most powerful pieces we have. You're doing a full text search, not just on the column, visible columns, but we're digging into the exception text, the stack trace, even the attachment names and custom data. It takes a little bit of time, depending on the search term and how many records you have. But it's a lot quicker than going through log files managed to try to find this stuff. We have the ability to manage entries, so you can star entries if they're important to go back and look at. You can dismiss them or return them back to a normal state. You can view the history of those exceptions. So when was the first time it was caught? How many times has it occurred since? And when was the last time it was thrown? So we have an integration where we explain errors. Again, we're using ChatGPT for this. So the AI side will take your exception text and your stack trace and try to give you a better idea of what's going on. So if something's a little convoluted, rather than having to go spend your own credits, you can spend our credits. Why not? We create ignore rules so that if you have too much stuff coming into Llama Logger and you don't want to deal with it, you can just ignore those entries and they go away either for the existing version or for all versions moving forward. We'll talk about managing users and projects as well as managing your subscription. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip over to that now. Let me bring up the UI. Here we go. So right now, this is my Llama Logger UI. I've signed up. I've logged in with my email. Once you sign up, you will get a temporary password sent to you. Log in, create a new password. You have the option to log in with Google as well. If you have a Google account that matches, you can do either or. Basically, you have log entries that are summarized. So these are, you're not going to see every entry that occurs. So if you get 10 entries in a row, you're not going to see that. You're going to see one line that says this has occurred 10 times. And you can see the first time it has occurred, the last time it's occurred. And again, you can look at that history. Okay. On the right-hand side, this is your details. So what organization is this project tied to? So I have my test account. This is my test CRM project. This is version 1.0 dev. So I know I'm currently in development. Yeah, it was an error that was thrown, first reported today. last reported also today. The timing's a little weird. And there's only one entry count. So if you have more than one entry show up here, that show history button is going to show up, and you can kind of see a chart of how that works. Down the bottom, you'll see some custom data and attachments. These are the context side of things. So as we dig into that, we'll explain that further. But yeah, that's where you find those down here. When you first log in the very first time, this grid will be blank, but you will get a wizard, a setup wizard, where you're going to be asked to create your first project. So you're going to have to give it a name. It's already attached to your current organization, and then it's going to be given an API key. And so just grab your API key from here, just copy that, put it either into your config file or hard code it if you feel like it. Anytime you want a notification to show up to your email, make sure your notification emails are filled in up here. And we have this option to include this project in a daily digest. And when we talk about notifications next, that's going to be important. So I recommend you turn that on. I think it's normally on by default. I turned it off recently. Every day at midnight UTC, an email goes out and says, here's what's happened during the day. Okay, any ignore rules will fill in down here, as well as your user accounts. If you're part of multiple organizations, you can see them here. So I actually have 3 organizations that I'm tied to. We're going to circle back to this at the end, but just note that you can be part of multiple organizations, and you can be tied to specific projects within those organizations. So you don't have to see every project. Okay. If at any point you are lost, don't know where to find things, you can always hit this View Docs button up here. This will take you to our main website, and all the documentation is down here on the left-hand side. This is getting started, getting your API keys, how to actually customize your entries, things like that. Okay. Let's talk about notifications quickly. Back to these. There we go. So notifications. So every time you get an exception, you could get a notification. What we do is we limit it so the first time you get that exception, that particular exception, you get an email. So it does get a little bit annoying at the very start when you have things like an authentication exception. Somebody forgot their password. And if you have 1,000 different users, you might get 1,000 different emails over time. So that's where the ignoring kind of comes into play. The nice thing is that when there's an issue, particularly something that your end user, you normally wait for your end user to report. They're going to call you up and say, hey, the system's down. Or I can't do this, or I can't do that. Before that ever happens, you're getting an email saying something's going on. You can get on top of that. You can go in and fix it, resolve those issues before your clients even know it's happening. So that's a huge, huge advantage. On the daily digest side, so again, that once a day that email goes out, we do summarize all the exceptions that have happened, any that are new, the total number of unique entries. So you might have, 100 exceptions, 10 of them were unique for a total of, how many entries. If you have multiple projects, they all come through in a single email together. So you can very quickly scroll through and say, oh, this looks good. In some cases, if you see a couple thousand entries in there, what's going on? Let's go back and fix that and find out why. Okay. So moving on to adding context, we're going to drop into some code here next. The idea behind this is, as an exception comes in, it may or may not mean a lot. So something happened. Great. Here's a detail of where in code it happened. That's already given to you as part of the stack trace. What we don't have is what were the parameters that were sent, or who are we logged in as, or what machine are we on? If you have multiple servers or server instances, which one am I dealing with? Where is that problem? So we allow the ability to add some context, either through custom data or attachments. In fact, you can do both. So an idea of custom data, again, which server am I on or who am I logged in as? On the attachment side, you might do, if you're on like a Windows application, you might do a screenshot. Is what the user was looking at. You might take the last 30 lines of a log file on the XAF side and say, take this, wrap it into a text file and upload that. So you can very quickly in the LLAMA Logger UI, look at the exception, go down to that, the custom attachments and the custom data and really dig in and know who's dealing with what and why. And it's impressive when you see somebody, they can't log in a bunch of times or they run into an error and they can't seem to get through it. You email them or call them, check in. Hey, how's it going? It looks like, we're seeing some issues come through. Do you need a hand with that? Now you're proactive. Now, your customer looks at you and goes, wow, maybe a little creepy, but also really cool. So this context is kind of essential. We use this all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch over to an XAF application where we've put LLAMA Logger into. In fact, that's where this one was created from. Here we go. And so all I've done in here is create an action within my business object that just throws some text. Pretty straightforward. And to enable this kind of globally, in my program.cs, I added those 2 lines of code. So I do my llama logger tracing.setup and my llama logger tracing.initialize. When you're pulling the version number, I hard coded this. You might want to do something like assembly .get executing assembly dot blah blah blah, and you can get the I spelled assembly wrong. You can get the actual assembly version itself and pass that along. And then if you like, you can say if you're in development or if your debugger's attached that, yeah, you're in dev mode. And then you can not worry if it's development, worry more if it's live. For now, I'll do 1.0 and we'll put dev back in there. Okay. So anywhere in your code where you do tracing.tracer.logger, that's now going to be passed through to LLAMA Logger. So it's not much of there's not much of a shift in terms of, taking your existing applications and saying, oh, I want to log it here instead. It's, like I said, 2 lines of code. In terms of adding context, that's where it gets a little more exciting. So I can do the LLAMA Logger tracing. I can get the tracer, and I can do the client itself. So this gets me the underlying LLAMA Logger client from that LLAMA Logger core package. We have also wrapped these so that the events and stuff are available at the tracer level. So it's a little easier. And the one we typically hook into is this customized log entry. I'm just going to put it right in line here. Args. First thing to note, the args have the log entry to work with. So I can see the actual exception, the exception string, the exception type, all that jazz. Even has like an ID attached to it. If I decide that I don't want to send this exception for whatever reason, I can actually filter at the code level. So I can just do an args.hand or cancel equals true, and that no exceptions will get sent at that point. We give you the opportunity in here to look for things like passwords. So if a password is being passed through, it shouldn't be, or a particular name, you can basically intercept the exception string and modify it as you see fit. So the idea is that if you don't want to pass through critical information, you have that opportunity. Okay. The args.log entry then has the ability to add attachments or add custom data. So if I'm adding custom data, this is custom data for this one entry, which means I can do something like username. I could do, I don't have security system here yet, but we'll play admin for now. But you can basically pull this username from your security strategy, from your authentication layer, whatever it is you want to do. You can pull that in here. Basically, it's just a key value pair. It's always string to string. So if you want dates and times or time zones, whatever it is you want, you can always add any custom data. It doesn't matter. On the attachment side, so this takes two pieces. One is what's the name, and it's important to name this well. So if this is a text file, add the extension for txt. If you just put info, it'll go. When it downloads, it'll just be a blob of binary. It doesn't know how to open it or what. So suggest putting the info.txt. Again, you might pull this from the log file. You might pull it from a screenshot image, something from memory, whatever it is. In my case, I'll do encoding dot, coding UTF-8 with bytes. This is a text file. Okay. And so every time this this exception gets hit, again, we're going to customize it for this one entry. There is an option to set a default for every entry, no matter the type. So I can do my llama logger tracing, tracer. So in here, I can do client dot add custom data. So it doesn't work on the attachment side, but it does work on the custom data side. So when I set this thing up the first time, in here I might say, hey, this is, and I know what the server is. There may not be an exception ever thrown from here, but if it is, it's coming from server one. So this applies to every log entry, whereas these are log entry specific. If anybody has questions throughout, please don't hesitate to toss a message in the chat. Try to keep an eye out for that as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run this. Okay, so I'm actually logged in as admin. I'm going to go to my clients. I'm going to add my client, and I'm going to create an exception. Okay, so it's blowing up exactly as I expect. If I head back over to Llama Logger now, I should be able to refresh this. And now it's been hit twice. So when I click on this, I can actually do the show history. And I can see it boils it down to the day, so it's happened twice. But I can dig in here and see really when did this happen. And I can actually look at the details down below. So here's my info txt, and here are the two pieces of information that I added. It's the same thing in here. So this always shows you the most recent exception and what's happened, but that history lets you dig in to each exception instance. I hit my attachments, hit my info txt. Of course, it'll pop up on a different screen, but exactly as we had it in code, this is the text file. So very easy to pass that information from your servers back to yourself for that context. Okay. Because the crash occurred in the same location within my code, and it was the same type of exception, it shows up as a number 2 item in here. So if I throw it, 10 more times, it'll keep going up. But if I change the location of this, or if I change the content of the crash, so I'm going to add the client name in here. Name. Okay, we're going to restart this one. Perfect, back to my clients. Create my exception. It's going to throw it again. Perfect. Back into Llama Logger. Do a refresh. I should have 2 in here now. Oh, it gave me 3. Made a liar to me. I think we do it based on, I should know this, I wrote this thing, based on the stack trace, not necessarily the stack trace and the version number, not necessarily the actual error message. Let me move it. Whoops, rule is active. We'll modify it, new version goes out. This should come up as a new item. Okay, back to our client. Close my exception. Back into LLAMA logger. There it goes. Sometimes it takes a minute to come up. It's usually pretty instant, but it is connecting to an external service. It's usually processed pretty quickly. It is all processed asynchronously. So as soon as your upload happens, the rest of the processing happens without interfering with your application. But now you can see the difference here. Okay. You'll notice that if we do the text search up here, the text search does search everything in the columns, but it also does the attachment names and the custom data. So if I'm looking for my client, I'll do a quick search. Oh, didn't actually find it for me today. My client. Oh, try that. There we go. So I actually found it in both because we have it in both. Multiple keywords, I think you have to put quotes around it. Okay, if I had more data here, it'd be cleaner to show, but definitely once you start getting errors in there, try that. Again, depending on the amount of data that's in the system, it can take a little bit longer. 5-10 seconds sometimes. But it is a lot quicker than searching through manually. We're also dealing with, currently there are just over 3 million records in this database. So, it's performing quite well, and we are constantly improving performance in here. So good. Let's talk about, we talked about starring a little bit, but let's go ahead and do that. So again, managing your exceptions. If you have comments that apply to this, so if it occurs again in a month or 6 months or a year, it'll always pop back up with the same summary. And so you can say, oh yeah, this just an issue with missing updates, something to that effect, and that'll be saved. So the next time it occurs, it pops up, hey, there's your comment. I can star my entry, so I can save it for later. You'll see it is status here to star. You can do a filter up here to show only starred, show only dismissed items. So if you'd say this doesn't matter, go away, but then you want to bring it back, you can do that, or show me all entries. If you want to do the explain exception, you can do that as well. This is usually pretty quick. Yeah, so now this one's very generic. So saying, look at the client CS file, line 45, and look for an issue there. Pretty generic, but once you have more stack trace and more details that are, well known, it usually comes up with some pretty good suggestions. Okay, in terms of creating ignore rules, you can ignore an exception by type. So I'm going to ignore all invalid operation exceptions, or I can do it by the exception details. So I want to ignore this exception moving forward, and it's only for the current version. So if you have a version of your software that is throwing this error like crazy, ignore it. You won't get notified. It won't show up in your list anymore. It will show up in the dismissed list automatically. Once you create a new version, if it happens again, it'll start popping back up. The idea is that hopefully you resolve the issue in your code. So if it does happen again, you want to know, right? It could be that you fixed it, you ran it for several months, and then on a different iteration, something happened, that same error occurred again because somebody undid some code or whatever the case may be. You're going to know about it. So the version specific is very short term, but it does work very well. We have discussed putting in some more complex rules for creating these rules. So do it by specific text, something in the stack trace. We haven't implemented that yet. We want to get more people on board before we expand this too much further to make sure that we get user input on what they'd like to see. Okay. Let's take a quick peek behind the scenes. Let me go back into here. Scroll through this thing again. Adding context behind the scenes. Perfect. So one of the key things for me when you're logging is you don't want your user sitting there waiting. If you're writing to a log file, that can take time, usually pretty quick. But if you're logging to another external service, it can take time. You're connecting to their service, depending on where they are around the world. That can take time. If the service is down, you don't want it sitting there waiting to time out for a minute. So we created basically a queue with 3 message pumps. And those message pumps just read from the queue on demand as needed. They'll fire up to 3. It will pull those messages out of the queue in batches of, I think, up to 20 exceptions. So if you have 20 exceptions happening in a second, that's impressive. Go fix your stuff. But it is able to process those all as basically one transaction. And because you can have up to 3 of those happening at the same time, you can process a ton of messages all at once. It's not likely that you're going to run into this. Normally it's 1 or 2 exceptions happening at a time. But when we did tests, we were basically pumping up, I think we did tests of around 5,000 exceptions. And while those exceptions are sending, you can still continue to use the application. So the exceptions are created, put into the queue. You're welcome to keep using your application. Those exceptions are happening up to LLAMA Logger asynchronously. At the same time that those exceptions are being pushed up to LLAMA Logger, you can also have a separate sync. So if you want to sync to a log file, or if you want to sync to external storage somewhere, or you use a different service, great. You can add those external syncs into the LLAMA Logger client as well. It's kind of similar to the Serolog concept, but with a slightly different pattern in the same processes. So again, you're given each exception, and you're given the opportunity to either log those or not log those, your choice at that point. Okay, the final thing I want to look at here, we designed this to basically save time for one. So you're not digging through log files. You're not going through SQL databases trying to, maybe have a SQL log table. You're not, querying like crazy trying to find bits and pieces. You're not trying to run full text searches everywhere. We do that for you. So basically pass all of your data into us. We help you get there quickly. We find that we're actually using this pretty much daily to go and see what's going on, not only for clients, but for ourselves as we're developing. So an error comes up, you think you have an idea, you go to fix it, and you go, what was that again? Just bring up LLAMA Logger, you have it on the other screen right there ready to reference. You can go back and forth very easily. The other piece we thought of was, let's pass some of these costs on for you and your clients, right? So you're going to come in here and you're going to say, we've got a LLAMA Logger account. It's working really well, but I don't want to pay. You basically pay for projects. I don't want to pay for all these projects. You can go ahead and have your clients sign up for a LLAMA Logger account. They enter their card details. It's all processed through Stripe at this point. So it's a trusted backend. As soon as that account is created, they can log in and they just invite you to be part of their organization, and they add you to the projects. In fact, they can make you an administrator of their organization, and then you can start creating projects on their behalf. And that way, you're never dealing with the direct costs for your clients. If they decide to stop paying, that's their choice. It just you don't have to manage it. And then the beauty is that in LLAMA Logger itself, you can actually see all entries across all of your organizations in one place. So you can filter by that organization. I didn't have that up on my screen, But let me just put the column back in there. So there's my organizations. I can group by that if I like to. Okay, expand that out. So you can filter by that organization. And kind of just see it all at once. We have the DevExpress grid control here. So if you're familiar with that, all of the power and flexibility in these grids is available to you as well, which is helpful. Okay, in terms of organizations, let's look at this real quick just for setup. So after you sign up, you're brought in, you're creating your first project. When it comes time to invite somebody, just go into your account, hit the add, and then, oh, sorry, I'm in administrators, hang on. User accounts, invite user. So you can just use their email address. They'll get sent an invitation to say, hey, you've been invited to your organization's LLAMA logger. They accept the invitation, they log in, and now they can see the same exceptions that you can, assuming they're part of those projects. If you want them to be a billing administrator, so they can manage exceptions, all that jazz, just check that off as you go. And problem solved. On the project side, same thing, right? So when we get into a project, who's able to see this? So again, you can invite that user directly here, or you can add to pick from the list of people who are already part of your organization. Okay. In terms of your subscriptions, so if at any point you decide you want to upgrade or downgrade or cancel, take your pick. Just hit this subscriptions tab. Go ahead and open the subscription portal. You're going to be brought into the Stripe setup. So you see my credit card information here. This is $0 per month because that's what I can do. But I can update my plan. I can pick the next plan that I want to work with, right? I can do monthly or I can do yearly. Take your pick. And right now we have some promo codes on the go as well. So we'll put that, I guess, when we do the video at the end, we'll put that down in the description. The current promo code is valid until the end of August of 2024. So now's a great time to jump on. Okay, let's do a little discussion about llamalogger.com directly. So in terms of subscriptions, and the pricing table, here we go. The standard and pro are the only two subscription tiers that let you do the custom data and attachments. Because when you update, when you send attachments and custom data to us, it takes more space. So we have to pass those costs along. We're not trying to really gouge anybody. We're just trying to make sure this is sustainable moving forward. You'll notice that your data transfer limit increases as well as you go up those tiers. So the two tiers, like the standard and the pro, are currently eligible for the current promo code. The free and the light are not. So just keep that in mind. Okay. If anybody has any questions, now's a great time. You can always hit our contact us here as well. If you're looking for a promo code at any point, whether it be now or 3 months from now, reach out. Happy to let you know if there's something on the go. We don't always, but we often do. On the integration side, there's some documentation here. You're going to notice that we're missing the serial log and we have the iLog provider. That's been rolled into the iLogger Microsoft piece. So these integrations are going to be updated in terms of documentation soon. We're actually just doing an update on the site in general. So just be aware. Okay, other than that, I think that's it for us. Short and sweet today.
Nice. I think that is really sweet, to be honest. So I actually was while you were presenting, was reviewing. Let me share my screen just for a second. Let me know if you guys can see it. was
Yeah,
reviewing
that's
like we are using it, and I was thinking that possibility to pass the COSA to our clients, that's awesome. I didn't even know that we could do that. Basically, they could create their own LLAMA Logger account and just basically invite us to the organization. So that's awesome. And I also believe that a lot of times something like this explaining section gives you a lot of like an insight of, okay, what could be that is going on here, what could be the cause. If you have a lot of them, if you see like there are a lot of sections, you can actually check the history and see, okay, I have this section in the last release or like the last version. Let's see what changed, what happened, and give you really, really nice breakdown of when the section has happened and also what will be the cause. So I'm really excited about the issue. Now I'm gonna try to tell our clients to actually create their account and invite us to the organization, because that definitely helps us a lot. Right.
beautiful.
All right, guys. Thank you as always for staying with us. I really look forward to this meeting every month. Dave, thanks a lot for the presentation. I think that especially in our SAF community, that was a need for this type of solution, and it's really straightforward, really user-friendly. I know that you have a roadmap to add more things, so please give feedback, everyone. And that's basically short and sweet, like Dave said. We see each other next month. Please, I saw that they put a promo code, Club 2024. Take advantage of it before the end of August. And as always, we sap out. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.